Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar introducing the brand new on-cost purchasing for Construction Online. I'm Holly Gibson.
I'm Drew Arrington. We're thankful that y'all were able to join us, and we're excited to show you on-cost purchasing.
Absolutely. Now, for those of you who are brand new to Construction Online or to UDA Technologies, Construction Online is our award-winning project management platform used by over 950,000 construction professionals just like you in 75 plus countries all over the world to manage things like estimating, scheduling, daily logging, project communication, general file management, and so much more every day. On-cost purchasing will be our brand new financial module, and we're really excited to introduce that. And many of you who do already have Construction Online will start to see that next week.
Yeah, absolutely. So with on-cost purchasing, some of the things you're going to be able to do is create detailed purchase orders, generate bills, track payments, upload and store receipts. And the best things about it is that it all integrates seamlessly with on-cost estimating. So what that's going to give you the opportunity to do is have better and faster job costing and give greater visibility on what needs to be paid.
Yeah, absolutely. And since it is all contained inside Construction Online, you'll have all of that in one place. So there won't be any dependency on pulling that information in from outside systems like QuickBooks. It'll all be just right in your Construction Online account. And as Drew mentioned, it is an outstanding, just seamless integration with the other tools in Construction Online. So the purchasing on-cost purchasing module will integrate, of course, with on-cost estimating. We'll also be able to pull line items from your cost books, as well as integrate with your selections and change orders. So it truly does bring everything into one system, and it's designed to work really well together. So we cannot wait to we can't wait to show you on-cost purchasing. And let's see, with that, we'll go ahead and jump in, Drew.
Yeah, so right now we're looking at on-cost purchasing within a single project. You do have the ability to look at a company-wide view, and we'll take a look at that later. So you'll see, first off, we have this table, and it's built with Construction Online's new dynamic table system, which gives you visibility and flexibility on how you view your information. So it's going to let you be able to see approval status, if work has been verified, sub and trade that the purchase order is assigned to, and give you, like I said, give you better visibility on that. So first, we'll look at creating a purchase order, a brand new one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go ahead and just create one. Of course, you can see we've got a list of purchase orders in our project here already made, but we do want to show you just how fast and easy it is to get a new one into the system. So you'll notice when we go to create a new purchase order, I can do that from my estimate, from an approved change order, or from scratch. So you have a ton of flexibility just in terms of how these are going to get created. I'll go ahead and choose from estimate. And you can see when we pull the screen up, we do have the option to start filling in some of those details.
Yeah, so like the details, you can have a title, and this is customizable. The system will go ahead and automatically generate a purchase order number, but you can also add your scope of work, the subcontractor or vendor, different dates such as due date, scheduled start, scheduled completion, delivery date. And then you'll see at the bottom, you also have purchase order type, trade, and tags. And these are all customizable fields. Those three are. And so you can really customize that and add whatever options you would like to help track your purchase orders. So in the next step, you'll see that we can choose which items to include from our estimate. You can see there's a search bar here that is really easy to use and pulls directly from the estimate. And then we also have the option to add additional items at the bottom for things that are not included within the estimate.
Let's go back and add one of those additional items. So let's see, I'm making here a PO for something like cabinetry. So if I needed to add a line item for, say, installation for cabinets, I can do that here. And then just go ahead and plug in my price. So again, super flexible. We'll drop a number in there. And then on the next step, we'll have the option to link this back to our estimate. So one thing I want to point out here is that for the purchase orders, because we're making this from our estimate, notice it's already linked up, but for job costing purposes, the additional item that I've added, I may want to go back now and just connect that to a line item or a section on my estimate. So I'll do that just by picking the category, subcategory, and then item that should belong with. And then we'll move to the next step where we could add attachments. So this would be a place to just put things like pictures or maybe bids that you've received, spec sheets, and that sort of thing. And then we'll hit create. So now we have a brand new purchase order added to our list. So super, again, just quick and easy to go ahead and get those in the system. Now, once we've created a purchase order and, we're looking at our list here, if you need to see more details, all you'll need to do is just go ahead and select that details option. That's just going to bring up this blade, and this is where we can see all the information for the purchase order, including the timeline. So that's what we'll see right here on the front. Now, the great thing about the timeline is it's always letting you know what has happened as well as the next actions that you need to take in the management process here. So I can see, for example, that this purchase order was created from the estimate and from my selections. It is active and it's already been approved by me. So my next step here would just be to create a new bill. And then I need to make sure that the work has been verified before a payment is applied. So the timeline lays all of that out for you. You'll also have areas where you can go back and review any of those details you filled in when creating the purchase order, including things like the items that are included, payments that may have been applied, and any attachments that you've chosen to add here.
Yeah. And so those are great ways to keep track of your purchase orders and look at the details very quickly. We know a lot of you will like to print out your purchase order and send a manual or like a copy to your subcontractor or vendor. And so now we can show you how to do that. And we'll have a couple examples, at least of what that would look like for you. And so we'll click on one and then we'll press print. And so you can see here that you can pick which project and which purchase order you'd like to do. It's going to automatically do the one that you click on. So you see there's different options. There's display options, report options. You can include images, for example, or not include images, and pick which density you'd like. And just as any other module in Construction Online, you can have default text and header and footers.
Yeah, absolutely. So the same, flexible printing options that you're used to. Here's an example of what that looks like when you print the purchase order. So you do still have options to go ahead and generate these hard copies in addition to, what you can see on your screen when you're managing those. So those are definitely great for handing off to your subcontractors. Now, a couple of things that I want to show you for the purchase order part of on-cost purchasing. We know that, creating the purchase order and managing that process sometimes is going to involve, and in fact, often will involve different people on your team. And so that does lead to a need to facilitate communication around that purchasing process, including when purchase orders need approval, when they've been approved, and as we get a little further into it, things like can we verify that the work has been completed before we actually pay that out? I'll pull up here the purchase order and bill settings just to give you an idea of the options that are included. Notice in my account here, I've selected the option to require approval by designated company users. So that means that either myself or my colleague Jim will need to approve every purchase order that is entered into Construction Online. This really is going to allow me the flexibility of having other team members contribute to creating these purchase orders, while also knowing that there is going to be some oversight and approval from myself. So depending on you and your team, you may want to implement an approval system. If you don't want to do that, you can, of course, just uncheck the box. And then you'll see as well, there is an option for requiring work to be verified before we can apply payments to purchase orders. So again, that is helping to facilitate that conversation. A lot of times what we see is the bill comes in, and there's a little bit of uncertainty. Was the work done or not? Is it okay to go ahead and pay it? And so these tools with the approval and the work verification really allow you to go ahead and manage that process a little bit better. Now you can see in my purchase order list here, I've got my approval status column. And we'll go ahead and just sort by that, as well as who approved that purchase order. So some of these were automatically approved because I was the one that put them in. And then some of them are pending approval that others have created. I want to point out as well that whenever a purchase order is entered that needs approval, you are going to be notified of that through email. So you'll get an email alerting you that there is a purchase order that needs that approval. So again, doing a great job here of just facilitating the communication process. And then I can go ahead and mark that as either approved or declined, so that the other team members that I'm working with on this project will be able to see those statuses.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about how construction online on-cost purchasing integrates with the estimating. So once a purchase order is approved, that's going to show into the committed cost within the estimate. And so we can take a quick look at that.
Absolutely. So we have the estimating just pulled up here. And so like you mentioned, those amounts for the approved purchase orders will show in your committed cost column.
Yeah, and so if we did the ones, for example, with the cabinets and countertops, or even with foundation here, you'll see that this pulling straight from the purchase orders, the approved purchase orders, and into the committed cost within the estimate.
And what's great, you'll notice what I'm doing on my screen here is as those amounts are pulled in, of course, what you'll see in the column will represent the total. But if I click on that number, it is going to pull up a window that lists for me all of the related purchase orders. Now, very often you may just have one purchase order for that subcategory, but in the event that you have multiple, it can be really nice because you're able to see, exactly where that number is coming from. I can go ahead and select it. And if I hit go to PO here, what will happen is it'll pull in that nice blade and detail screen. So I never even have to leave my estimate. I can stay right here, see the information for the purchase orders right in front of me as I'm, looking at my estimate or budget. And those amounts will help keep your remaining budget dashboard up to date as well once we start making, payments, of course, on those purchase orders. And I guess that really gets us to our next step. So, just heading back over to the heading back over to our list of purchase orders. If we think about the process, typically we're going to, we made our purchase order, we've issued that out to our sub or vendor, we're seeing those amounts and tracking the budget. And then usually the next things that will start to happen is we're going to begin to receive those invoices from our subcontractors or vendors, suppliers, others that we're working with, and we really need to start managing the payment part of that process. We touched on the work verification earlier, and I do want to note that this part of the process is really where that comes in and offers a huge benefit. One of the things that I hear over and over again from people that I work with sort of around this process, kind of no matter what side of the industry they're on, is a lot of times there is just some question marks. Maybe there is someone who's a project admin or a bookkeeper or an accountant or someone else who's really managing those outgoing payments to subcontractors. And a big point of communication that sometimes is missing is, okay, well, I've got the bill. How do I know if it's okay to pay it? Was the work done? Was it done correctly? Is there anything we need to, hold back? Is there going to be, were there damages or anything like that? So not only was the work done, but was it done, as per our contract? And then on top of that, am I receiving a bill or an invoice for the correct amount? So having the purchase order in the system allows us to see Yes, that amount is correct, so we can compare those values. The work verification really solves the part where we're looking to see, is it okay to go ahead and pay this? So I'll tell you a little bit about how this works. You'll notice that I have two columns, verify work and verified by. So there's three different options under verify work: pending, which is going to be really the default value, verification needed, and then work verified. So what will happen is whenever this gets changed to verification needed, then that triggers the communication, and email is sent out to whoever you've designated to verify that work. So it may be a superintendent or project manager on the job site, or it could be someone else on your team. And once it's marked as needing that verification, they'll receive communication that the work does need to be verified and can come in and update the status here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when they update the status, maybe to work verified, we can pull back up the blade that we had earlier and take us to our next step. So once it's been verified, now it's time to create a new bill. And then from that bill, we'll create a payment from there. So I guess we can click create new bill, and you'll see that there, well, it's going to allow us to select the purchase order that we want. It's already going to have the one selected that we clicked on, but we can also do it for more as well.
And see how easy that is? I mean, you'll notice that so much is pre-selected for you. So again, because it is all designed to work together, you can enter a new bill from scratch if you get that. But if you do already have your purchase order set up, it really eliminates the amount of extra data entry that you have to do. So any information that it can pull off of a purchase order, it's going to go ahead and pull in, including things like who our vendor was, what's the trade, any tags that we had applied. And then you have additional spaces here to note the date of the invoice. So this is usually the date printed on the invoice, when you received it, and then when it's due. So maybe that's the end of each month or the 15th or whatever your contract stipulates. You can note those items here. And again, that gives you a lot more trackability as far as just what expenses are coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for when it's time to include items, it's going to already have the items that were from the original purchase order included in there. Like Holly said, just making it a lot easier on you to keep everything streamlined.
And notice as we create that bill, I can see the details on that right on the timeline. So you're always going to have that visible. And like Drew mentioned, typically the next thing that is going to happen, and we see that right here in our next action, is that we do want to then create a new payment. So when we're ready to create the payment for that bill, we can go ahead and enter that. I can do that on the payments tab here, or I can go to the bill or the purchase order. Again, because it is all designed to work together, you're typically going to be seeing that information wherever you are, kind of within this module, just to make it faster and easier to, to be able to get that stuff created. If we wanted to go ahead and create, say, a payment for this bill, let's go ahead and mark it as ready for payment. And then once we've done that, now we'll be able to create a new payment. So again, notice that it goes back to that verification process. Once the work is verified, we do need to confirm that the bill is okay to go ahead and pay. So that just allows us to manage that process. And then I can see, as I'm creating my payment, what bill this is for, have we paid anything on it to date? And then enter any other details on the next step. So much is done for you, so there's not a ton of work for me to need to do here, but I can note like what, for example, the payment method was. So if it's a check, maybe I want to put what the check number is. So we'll just put check 951. Link to estimate and attachment, same as we've seen with the others. So you'll notice that those options are really going to be within all of the tools here. So now we've created a payment for our bill, and we'll start to see some of these numbers here, our paid to date number updates. When I look at the purchase orders, I can compare what's approved versus what's been paid versus what's still remaining or remaining in my committed cost. And we'll also see those payment amounts back in the estimate as well.
Yeah, so it'll work just like the approved purchase orders did. So once a bill has been paid, it will populate in the estimate actuals. And so we can see here it's in the actuals column, right now the committed column. And so this is where it's really going to help you see the faster and better job costing. And also too, like Holly mentioned a little bit earlier, it will populate, this will affect the remaining budget dashboard at the very top of the estimate and keep that up to date and help your have more visibility there.
Yeah, we talk a lot about visibility, Drew, but it's really one of those important, cornerstones of any project. The more visibility you have into where things stand, and the faster you can get that information, the better. So again, not waiting on these amounts to be imported from anywhere else, but rather just being able to see these dashboards really up to date, up to the minute. As long as you're entering the info in the system, what we're seeing here is going to be a reflection of our current budget, and all of our team members, of course, with permissions who have access to see this, will be able to see this updated budget just on a day-to-day basis. So again, it really does facilitate, facilitate that visibility. Now, I know what we've looked at so far has really been around the purchase order process. So when we think about those POs, we're creating and issuing those usually ahead of time. Very often, and those are managed with things like bills and payments. But sometimes there are things a little less maybe formal that will come up kind of around expenses. So one of the things with keeping that budget up to date and keeping that visibility beneficial for everyone is to make sure that it's not just those big contracts that get entered, but all of those day-to-day expenses that are going to still affect the job costs and can eat up profitability. So that's where we do have tools outside of purchase orders for you to be able to just enter things like expenses or receipts for some of those different types of purchases that are going to affect your job costs.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give you an example, if like a receipt, let's say a superintendent needs more supplies for the job site. So they could make a quick run to Home Depot, get the supplies they need. Maybe they don't own a company card, just pay on their own. And they can, with receipts, they can take a picture of the receipt, upload it to ConstructionOnline, and then create a receipt from a image. And so with here, you can see there's also details of maybe there's reimbursement needed that you can add on. You can see in the details here, there's two different ones, examples that we have for you. You can make the receipts itemized, you can make them a lump sum. And so really giving you more options here and flexibility to add the receipts and track the receipts for, like Holly said, things that don't really need a purchase order.
Exactly. There will also be other types of things. You notice I have an entry here for a permit. It's just an expense entry. Sometimes you will issue a purchase order for things like your permits, but there typically will be some things on your estimate where you'll need to record those expenses, but you may not choose to go with a PO in those instances. So something like this would be a great example. When I'm adding that in, I can just add a new expense, go ahead and note the details of it. Very similar to a receipt. I can, plug those details in. I can still add an attachment or a picture if I need to here, and really just be able to see, be able to note and see what this expense was related to. A couple of examples here would be, maybe because you think usually, right, if we're spending money, we're probably getting a receipt, but maybe there's a vendor for like your cleaning crew that you work with every week and they don't give you a receipt every single week, but you want to record a weekly payment. Or maybe it's just more for internal labor. So let's just say that you have estimated some supervision fees or something like that as part of your project estimate. So maybe every other week when you pay your superintendent, you want to make sure to allocate a portion of those earnings to the job costs. So that would be a great use, again, of just entering expense entry. Now, just like with bills, you are going to, for these expenses and receipts, record a payment. So you'll notice in my list here, I can see that some of mine are paid in full, or one of mine has been paid in full. The other two still need to be paid. So I will need to go ahead and record a payment for these. This is going to allow you to not only review that expense and have it logged, but make sure that it is coded to the correct place on your estimate. So when I go to record a payment for this receipt that maybe someone on my team has submitted, I can again, note who it was paid to, what the payment method was, and then the next step, go ahead and connect that into my estimate for job costing purposes. So if you have a place on the estimate where this type of expense would normally go, this is where you would go ahead and hook that up. So we can just note, what the category was, what the subcategory was, as well as any items that we want to connect. Now, if you don't have a place on your estimate where this usually goes, hopefully this will give you a way to think about, well, hey, maybe I want to have that in my estimate, because we know these things are going to come up. Now, once we make these payments, again, just like with the bills, this is going to show in that actuals column on our estimate. So when we're looking at the job cost and we're looking at that budget information, it really is pulling from all of these: our paid purchase orders, our bills, our expenses, receipts. Any payments that have been recorded for those are going to show up right on your project budget.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do know that many of you manage multiple projects at one time and not just one project going on. So on-cost purchasing does have a company-wide view. We have been in the project view, but we'll go to the company-wide view. It's going to look a lot similar to the individual project, where you have the option to go between purchase orders, bills, expenses and receipts, and payments. It's also going to have the same group by and dynamic tables to help you give the better visibility on approval status, work verification status, specific vendors. And so we can see here that maybe if we go to the group by and dynamic tables, maybe we want to look at a company-wide view of every single purchase order that is pending approval. So Holly can drag the approval status there, and we can see that we have 16 out of 40, or 40%, that are pending approval. And then it's going to group all the ones that have already been approved together as well.
One thing I really love about these group by views, and you can use this type of functionality in your project list and your to-do list and your permit list and all sorts of other places in Construction Online. But I love the flexibility and how fast it is to get that information. So not only can I see my purchase orders based on approval status, but I'm also able to see some really helpful information here. I can see that about 40% of all of my POs are still pending approval. I can also see that they total to about $1.7 million. So just from like a high level, I'm able to get some really great financial data. They're great use cases. If we think about managing at this company level, would be, maybe same thing, but for work verification. So how many POs do we have that are awaiting work verification right now? Or maybe we just want to look at our purchase orders by type or trade. So again, I can just grab any of these headings, go ahead and drag it to the top, and then I can see, okay, so I have 8 material POs right now. I can see they total about $76,000. They average about 9,500 and so forth. So I can see that most of mine are subcontracts for an average value of a little over $100,000. Or maybe we want to see this by vendor. So again, like the possibilities are just endless with the dynamic tables. It's really one of my favorite things to help people get started using, because it doesn't require any extra work from you. It's really a part of Construction Online that pays you back. As long as you're putting your purchase order information in the system, we're compiling all of this on the back end and giving you a great amount of flexibility in how you look at that information, but also just the information that you can get and pull out of it very, very quickly. I do just want to point out here, as we're looking at purchase orders, we see them here within the company area. If we go back to one of our projects, you do have some of that visibility right on the front page. So I can see my purchasing quick link. There'll be other places in the system where some of this data will start to show up. So really our goal again is just to increase the visibility of this information and make it as easy as possible for you to manage that purchasing process. Before we jump into questions, Drew, I know one of the questions that we've gotten a lot over the last couple of weeks just has been, when is it coming out and how can I get it? So what we are looking at right now is on-cost purchasing will be coming out over the next week. So for those of you who already have Construction Online, you will start to see this in your account next week. Anyone who has a current 2024 version of a team or business level product will automatically have access to purchase orders. So you'll see that start to show in your account. If you don't have Construction Online yet and would like to learn more about the system, of course, we're happy to meet with you one-on-one and talk about what a good plan for your company would look like. And we do have on-cost purchasing available as an add-on. So if you maybe are not sure if your version has it, or just want to talk to someone about how you can make sure you have access to use or try out on-cost purchasing, please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly. We're really excited to get this in your hands next week. So be on the lookout for that. And until then, we want to just thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon and taking time out of your day to join us today. We hope this has been informative for you, and we will look forward to having a chance to do this again soon.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys.